Bitcoin's just bounced back quite a bit, and it's pretty interesting to see this, as earlier in the year it was almost reliable, almost a guarantee that we would get a dump on the weekend and a little pump right before the weekend. Now it's the exact opposite, and so you can see there's this sort of like whale movement where everything seems to be very, I guess, pattern oriented. But the one thing I'm focused on is what's going to happen in October. If we do get this October rush, this October ETF, that means Q4 is going to be absolutely bananas. I believe that that's going to be the case. But meanwhile, there's a regulatory framework brewing. And what we see is the very first target of this regulatory framework is going to be lending. DeFi is under the spotlight here. And what I really hope happens, what I hope significantly happens, is that we get a regulatory framework that actually lets these regulated entities like Coinbase, like Celsius, who are now being attacked by regulators, they're the ones who need to be offering these products, because this is where you could actually have someone to go and hold accountable if something goes wrong. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the entire industry is just going to go to completely anonymous, completely decentralized on-chain products, which of course are vulnerable to smart contract exploit and other types of things. But that's kind of like the push and pull here, is that if you take the good actors who have been paying taxes and setting up shop and registering, like Coinbase, like Celsius, and you punish them for that, then essentially what you're doing is you're essentially forcing the industry away from accountability and towards an industry that is just completely decentralized on chain. Maybe that's the right way to go. I'm just saying, wouldn't the governments like to tax people and hold people accountable and know that there was something going on, some team or some group of people that you could actually go to if something happens? Anyway, I'm a believer, I'm an optimist that innovation and innovators will find a home eventually. However, it seems as though anything that has to do with lending is going to come under the purview of the regulators. Now, that's a very interesting thing as we look towards NFTs, because NFTs to me are the ultimate elusive thing for the regulator. So unless they just make a law that says if it's a digital asset, then blank, even so, the reality is that NFTs, there's no way that they could come under the securities definition. They are just not securities. I don't even believe they're commodities, right? They're just things, right? And so this is super bullish the more you zoom out and look at the stage in which NFTs are and actually the category of asset that they are. I'm of the tremendous belief that if essentially the regulators come in and ruin the party here for DeFi and ruin the party for some coins, which I don't really think is realistic. I think there will just be a process of transition at the very worst for getting coins into a new framework. But the reality is that we're looking at a potential turning point that is actually going to king make NFTs. So keep that in mind, that not all assets are created equal and not all assets are on the same playing field. So make sure you understand the difference between these coins. This is why it pays to have a deeply researched opinion that is nuanced about this space, and why I'm so bullish on crypto gaming and NFT based gaming, because that is just simply a utility asset that people use for the actual feeling they get of being in a game with those assets. Now, there is another story going on, which is of course the ETF. The ETF is going to completely change the nature of this asset class, and it will absolutely giga-send the Bitcoin chart. And we know what happens when Bitcoin gets sent. All that liquidity goes and plays around in the smaller cap coins. So a Bitcoin ETF is going to send shockwaves through the entire industry. Now, of course, we've been seeing predictions that this could top somewhere in early October. I don't think that's possible, because the reality is if a Bitcoin ETF comes in, it'll completely change the fundamental landscape. And at a certain level, I'm just not going to be a subscriber so completely indebted to the 4-year cycle. In fact, I'm not even sure the 4-year cycle is as prevalent as it once was. What's clear to me is that we have these microwaves of bullishness with individual catalysts, whether they be NFTs or DeFi. In this case, we had gaming pop up in early June and NFTs as a store of value. And so now what we're seeing is a potentially entirely new asset class, an entirely new store of value that is completely outside the regulator's purview. And it's very interesting to see. So seeing a mad rush in from DeFi into NFTs, especially if the crackdown starts getting really successful, again, I want to take this with a boulder of salt, because the reality is Celsius and Coinbase have billions and billions of dollars to go toe-to-toe with the regulators and drag this out. Look at XRP. Everybody said, oh, the regulator's coming for XRP. Well, it's years later. It's not months later. It's not weeks later. It's years later, and we're still seeing them drag it through the mud. We don't know what's what's going to happen, what we know for sure, is that this is going to last a very long time, potentially multiple years. So if in the short term you're being fudded out of your bags, you need to take a look in the mirror and understand that this regulatory fear has been here, this uncertainty has been here since 2012, since 2011. We've not known the way the governments would react to this, but we're starting to see it in real time and understand that I believe, genuinely, at least I'm an optimist here, that this will be worked out and that there will be a framework here. Assets even like XRP, like all of these, will end up having a path. So understanding that this is not an end and that actually the regulators coming in and completely ruining investments for a wide swath of people might trigger their own, cascading lawsuits. There's so much to unpack here. I believe genuinely that a framework will emerge and that all of these coins will have a path forward. And so that will mean that innovation will have a home. That will mean that all of these assets will have a future. And it could also mean that NFTs end up being the most exciting sector because of their regulatory sort of safeguards. The fact that they are not financial instruments in and of themselves, but the fact that they are just digital assets on the blockchain. They're just literally things. Like, you can't stop me from selling a rare kettlebell here. If somebody wants to overpay for my kettlebell or values it at more than I paid for it, doesn't make it a security, right? So there's a lot going on. I certainly think that the regulation stuff is going to get worked out, and I'm personally very bullish that we'll get an ETF approval in October. Now, of course, we've been rugged on that consistently for years, so I could be wrong. But if that happens, Q4 is going to be the most ridiculous quarter. So hold tight and don't let these whale games fool you, because especially if we are going to get an ETF filing that is approved, and the whales know about that, believe me, they'll know about it before you do. They'll try to FUD people out. They'll try to do one last shakeout. They'll try to have some kind of flash crash between now and then. So understanding that is key to survival here. I'm going to hodl super tight, only on spot. I have a lot of NFTs. They've been busting back with a vengeance. Cyber Kongs went from about a 20-something ETH floor for the Genesis when I first bought them. Now they're at 100 ETH floor. The babies went from under 2 ETH up to last time I checked, they're at like almost 6 ETH. And so this is an amazing space for getting gains here if you're paying attention. We saw Moon River. I can't even count the amount of altcoins that have gone 5-10x since we were talking about them on the bear cycle, in the bearish correction. But this is just the beginning, because this stuff is going to go another 10x from here if this cycle continues the way I think it's going to. Make sure you don't get fudded out of your bags. If you like this video and you actually want to learn how to get ahead of this market, make sure you're subscribed, because we're doing not just one but multiple videos each and every day here. This is the peak season. This is the bull market that you've been told about. And if you're not paying full attention here, you're going to miss these opportunities. If we go bear again, you can go ahead and go take your vacations, go get lazy and stop focusing on crypto. But now is the time to stay subscribed, bell on, and of course more hints are coming for the Citadel, so make sure that you're fully engaged here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Elliot Trades. You can find me on Twitter at ElioTrades, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.